What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com.
Here are my DFS picks for NFL Week 6 sleeper picks.
These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button
And hit that bell icon
so you don't miss our new videos.
In this video, I'm going to give you some of my top DFS sleeper picks, super low priced and low ownership players that could crush value this week and give your lineup an advantage over the field. These are risky plays, meant for large tournaments only. Don't go all in on any of these guys. They are high risk, high reward picks. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, NFL Week 6. Got a ton of awesome sleeper picks for you, so let's get into it. At the quarterback position, my sleeper pick is Kirk Cousins from the Minnesota Vikings playing the Miami Dolphins, who have the 5th worst defense overall. They give up the 2nd most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins has averaged 17.3 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 1.4 rush attempts per game. Only gonna be about 3% owned, projected at 18.2 fantasy points here in week 6. And he's 6,000 DraftKings salary, 1,600 more on FanDuel. Now Vegas thinks there's gonna be 45.5 points scored in this game, with the Vikings favored by 3. So Kirk Cousins has scored 23, 14, and 18 fantasy points in the last 3 games. Now he has a fantastic matchup. And remember guys, he's got Dalvin Cook, he's got Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen. I think he is set to go off in this matchup at only 3% ownership, and you can save some salary as well. So I like Kirk Cousins here versus the Miami Dolphins. Okay, let's take a look at the running back position. Now, it was kind of hard to find a sleeper pick at the running back position. I mean, Dalvin Cook at only 4% ownership, I think is a pretty good play. Super low ownership, but he's not really a sleeper pick. Everyone knows Dalvin Cook is a stud. That ownership is way too low though. But if we want to look for a real sleeper pick here, it's really hard to find because you got guys like Eno Benjamin who are gonna be the lead running back because of injury, but he's gonna be about 35% owned, so not really a sleeper pick. Then you got Ramondre Stevens, who's going to be about 33% owned. So again, not really a sleeper pick. So a lot of the players that normally I would pick as a sleeper pick, their ownership is way up there because they're going to be the lead back because of injury and they have a good matchup. So the sleeper pick that I found is James Robinson from the Jacksonville Jaguars playing the Indianapolis Colts, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing running backs. James Robinson has averaged 13.6 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 13.8 rush attempts per game and 1.8 pass targets per game. He's only going to be about 1% owned, projected at 10.9 fantasy points here in week 6. He's 6,100 DraftKings salary, 600 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 41 points scored in this game, with the Jaguars trailing by 1.5. Now, James Robinson has scored 6, 3, and 24 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 10, 8, and 17 rush attempts on top of 2, 0, and 3 pass targets. So I can see why his ownership is so low. He put in 2 really awful weeks, but take a look at that game where he scored 24 fantasy points. He got 17 rush attempts and 3 pass targets.
Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching.
If you want to enter the drawing for $25 PayPal,
all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won.
And we'll send you $25 PayPal.
So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you.
That could happen here again, and if he puts up 20 plus fantasy points at 1% ownership, he could find his way in the winning lineup. But honestly, guys, I'm probably not going to be playing any sleeper picks at the running back position. It was really a stretch to find a guy like James Robinson. Another guy, 1% ownership, Kareem Hunt. But outside of that, like here's Darrell Henderson Jr. He's going to get the start. He's going to be the lead back, but 23% owned. Same with Kenneth Walker from the Seattle Seahawks, 22% owned. So there's no sneaky running backs this week. Kareem Hunt, James Robinson, and really probably my favorite sleeper pick would be Dalvin Cook. Do what you will, guys. It's a tough spot for sleeper picks at the running back position, but that's not the case at the wide receiver position. It's filled with awesome sleeper picks, so let's get into it. At the wide receiver position, one of my sleeper picks is Adam Thielen from the Minnesota Vikings playing the Miami Dolphins, who have the 5th worst defense overall. They give up the 7th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Adam Thielen has averaged 11.2 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 7 pass targets per game. He's on the field for 97% of the snaps, gonna be about 2% owned, projected at 12.3 fantasy points here in week 6. He's $5,900 DraftKings salary, same price on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 45.5 points scored in this game, with the Vikings favored by 3. Now, Adam Thielen has scored 7, 15, and 18 fantasy points in the last 3 games, off of 7, 9, and 8 pass targets. So, what's not to like here? Why only 2% ownership? He's been putting up good numbers, averaging 7 to 9 pass targets per game in the last 3 weeks. He has a fantastic matchup. And keep in mind, guys, Tua Tagovailoa is out for the Miami Dolphins. So this Minnesota Vikings offense is going to be on the field quite a bit. I think you could stack Kirk Cousins, Adam Thielen, and even Dalvin Cook. And all those guys are going to be super low ownership. And then fill the rest of your lineup with studs. You got a great tournament lineup right there. So I like Adam Thielen here versus the Miami Dolphins. Okay, another sleeper pick at the wide receiver position is Tyler Boyd from the Cincinnati Bengals playing the New Orleans Saints, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They give up the 9th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Tyler Boyd has averaged 11.3 fantasy points per game on the season. Now, he's only averaging 4.6 pass targets per game, but he's on the field for 79% of the snaps. Only going to be about 1% owned, projected at 11.3 fantasy points here in week 6. He's $5,100 DraftKings salary, $900 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 43 points scored in this game, with the Bengals favored by 2.5. So Tyler Boyd has scored 6, 8, and 24 fantasy points in the last 3 games of a 4, 5, and 5 pass targets. He's been kind of a boom or bust player, which is why I think it makes him a good sleeper pick. He's got a good matchup, salary's low, ownership is super low, so I like Tyler Boyd here versus the New Orleans Saints.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all the tools for NFL. NBA is right around the corner. This is a great time to get in and try everything for 1 month. The tools are all about saving research time. You can see the last 3 games, the fantasy points per game, the targets they got per game so you can see how involved they are in the offense, the rushes they got per game. Seeing all this stuff on one screen helps you save time and make better picks. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, another sleeper pick. If you're looking for a low salary play here with low ownership, this is a guy who I think's got pretty big upside. We saw him flash it last week. Take a look at Darius Slayton from the New York Giants playing the Baltimore Ravens, who have the 9th worst defense overall. They give up the 2nd most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Darius Slayton only played 2 games so far this season. He scored 14 fantasy points last game off of 7 pass targets and 2 fantasy points the game before that off of 2 pass targets. So it looks like they're working him into the offense here. He's only going to be about 2% owned, projected at 8.1 fantasy points here in week 6. And he's only 3,800 DraftKings salary, 1,800 more on FanDuel. If he can get anywhere close to the 7 targets he did last game, I think he's going to be a fantastic play. High risk, high reward. The Vegas thinks there's going to be 45.5 points scored in this game, with the Giants trailing by 5.5. So this could be a good game script for Darius Slayton if the Giants fall behind. And I do think the Giants are going to be able to keep themselves in this game. I think it's going to be closer than people think. And I actually think the Giants are going to win this game. So I like Darius Slayton here versus the Baltimore Ravens. Okay, now there's another sleeper pick that I've got my eye on, although I do prefer Darius Slayton. Take a look at Tre'Quan Smith. Now, let me just pull up the wide receivers for the Saints. You got Jarvis Landry out, Michael Thomas out, Chris Olave questionable. So that leaves Tre'Quan Smith and Marquez Callaway as a couple of guys who could see some added or increased target share here this week. Now, I do think Chris Olave is going to play, and I think he is going to get the bulk of the targets. But Tre'Quan Smith, only 3,700 DraftKings salary, 1,600 more on FanDuel. He put up 18 fantasy points off of 5 pass targets 3 games ago, so he's got some upside. This is a super high risk, high reward play, but because of the injuries, I think it does make some sense here to go with a guy like Tre'Quan Smith as a deep sleeper pick here versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Okay, moving on to the tight end position. My tight end sleeper pick, I've got 2 of them here, but the one that I like the most is David Njoku from the Cleveland Browns playing the New England Patriots, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They give up the 7th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. David Njoku has averaged 11.5 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 5.8 pass targets per game. He's been on the field for 89% of the snaps, only going to be about 4% owned. He's projected at 8.1 fantasy points here in week 6. He's projected at 10.3 fantasy points here in week 6, and he's 4,000 DraftKings salary, 1,900 more on FanDuel, so I love that DraftKings price. Vegas thinks there's going to be 43 points scored in this game, with the Browns favored by 2.5. So David Njoku has scored 15, 11, and 24 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 6, 7, and 10 pass targets. So he's getting over his season average in targets all 3 of his last games, between 6 to 10 pass targets. I like that volume. He's been productive. His DraftKings price is super low with a good matchup and low ownership. So I like David Njoku here versus the New England Patriots. Now, if you want to save even more salary here, take a look at Irv Smith Jr. from the Minnesota Vikings playing the Miami Dolphins, who have the 5th worst defense overall. They give up the 9th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Irv Smith Jr. has averaged 6.7 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 5 pass targets per game. He's going to be about 4% owned, projected at 8.1 fantasy points here in week 6. He's $3,200 DraftKings salary, $1,700 more on FanDuel. So this is just another guy to add to your Minnesota Vikings stack. So I like Irv Smith Jr. here versus the Miami Dolphins.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NFL slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.